Most recently, I had Mötley Crüe on my show, and
Wow.
Mötley Crüe could be like intimidating. These are like living legends, you know.
Yeah.
They've told the same stories a million times. I'm sure they don't want to tell them again. Anyway, I said, I want, and I'm such a lover, so I was like, I want everyone here to share something they love about the other members of the band.
What's going on? Welcome to the She's of the Band podcast here on Knotfest. I've got Allison Hagendorf in the metaphorical building. And by building, I mean the Zoom call. How are you, Allison?
I am so glad to be here with you. I feel like I see you. You're my people. We are just waving the flag, the celebration of music, of the culture, of the community. So I am so psyched to be here with you today.
Yeah, I definitely, it's an interesting situation for me to be in to interview an interviewer that I respect and look up to
Oh,
so much. It feels like the tables have turned a little bit. Um,
oh.
And I also feel like I have to be on my best behavior because you know the game. You know the interviewing game. If I'm off my game, you're gonna know.
No, I totally hear that, and I that makes me blush. But you are awesome, so I have full confidence. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's kind of fun for me to be on the other side of it, you know, because I am so used to interviewing. So like now I'm just here chilling. I'm like, let's go.
I know, and you have to talk about yourself now, which normally is an interview where I don't know about you, but I try to keep to a minimum because I'm like, this isn't my
Yes.
show, right? It's someone else's show. But now this is your show. Proper.
It's I by the way, you and I are the same in that way
Mm.
because so many interviewers or shows you listen to, I mean, I guess it depends what the goal is, but for me as an interviewer, I really just I'm shining the light on my guest and I think the number one key to being a great interviewer is listening.
Yes, I say
Like
this all the time.
that is actually the secret. And it's not just for interviewing. I think in life and relationships and conversations, I think listening, people would should just listen more because our communication would be better.
I think people don't realize being an interviewer is just being a conversationalist. That's all
Yes,
it like
it
in a
is.
good listener because I know when I first started out, I was so in my head about questions and remembering things, and I was missing the biggest piece of the puzzle because I
Yeah.
wasn't listening to what was happening. And
It's
how can
just
you
listening.
possibly,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's listening and being present. You know, it's
yes.
actually listening to what the person's saying and then genuinely reacting to it and not thinking about what you have in your head next.
Yes, when I was 18, the first tattoo I got on my arm says now, as a reminder to be present. Not just
Oh,
in interviews, but in life. It's such a great skill to have.
yes.
So
I
we
love that.
definitely
That's
practice it.
awesome. That's super
But
cool.
you definitely are my people in the way that we are both living and breathing rock music all the
Yes.
time, our entire
Yes.
lives. And it's just I'm so glad to be joined by you too because you just exude it at all times. And
Oh,
I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast is also here because we all live and breathe it. So,
we
yeah.
do. It's not what we do, it's just how we live. It's part of us. There's no separation. You know, it's just it's almost our religion.
Yeah, you're such an encyclopedia of knowledge. There's just no other way to know everything that you know up here if you didn't love it.
Thank you. Well, I learned from the great encyclopedia, which is Matt Pinfield, my mentor and dear friend and honorary brother, and there's no one better than him. But as a little girl watching him on MTV, I was like, I want to be as much like him as humanly possible. So I appreciate you saying that because that really means a lot to me because that's really what I set out to do and to be.
Yeah, I will, and we'll get into the whole journey with getting to know Matt Pinfield as well because there's no better mentor in rock music journalism than him. And also,
Yes,
today's his birthday as we're
it
recording this, isn't it?
is.
Yeah, so
It
happy
is.
birthday, Matt
Happy
Pinfield.
birthday, Matt Pinfield. What a living
Uh,
legend.
Seriously, just the best. I remember meeting him and being like, yeah, he's the real deal.
He's
And
the
as
real
are you.
deal.
So he passed the
Oh,
torch to you for sure.
oh, thank you.
And
Thank you.
I do want to start really at like the beginning for this episode because there must have been an artist that first sparked this in you. What was the first record that you became obsessive about that like lit the fire in you?
It was Nirvana's Nevermind. It was
Yeah.
just, you know, it was, I know that sounds cliche now, but at the time when it came out, I was only like 11. So I was like right in that imprinting area where you go from listening to what your parents like or what your siblings like or what's on the radio, to actually something that touches you that becomes yours. And Nirvana was my gateway drug into all things alternative rock. But I will say that the first CD I ever bought with my own money, and I think it was part of the Columbia House where you would like send away, but was Steve Miller Band's Greatest Hits. I,
Wow.
I loved Steve Miller Band. I know it sounds sort of random, but I still love Steve Miller Band. But Nirvana was my gateway drug. But I really loved immediately like alternative rock that was happening then, but I loved classic rock right away. Led Zeppelin became my favorite so quickly. So it was like Led Zeppelin, Nirvana, then it would be like Steve Miller Band, then it was like Jimi Hendrix, then it was like Fleetwood Mac, then it's Pearl Jam. It's just like a mix of just, and you think about it, all of those great rock acts from the 90s were all inspired by the great acts of the 60s and 70s. So it makes perfect sense. And then I remember hearing Nirvana's MTV Unplugged and then first becoming really interested in David Bowie, because Kurt Nirvana covered him. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, if they love Bowie and they love Neil Young and they love all these other artists, the Beatles, then I would actually go and to learn about them more because Nirvana loved them. So I'm just so lucky that my imprinting years were in the early 90s when it was an absolute renaissance for music, specifically rock.
Yeah, you definitely were very lucky. I was just being born, so I
Mhm.
I had to go backwards and like, learn it all
Totally.
once I was of age to appreciate like Alice in Chains and Nirvana and all of
But
that.
that's so cool that you did, like obviously I didn't grow up in the time of Led Zeppelin, but that's my favorite band. So I think it almost means more when it wasn't like wasn't happening at that
Mhm.
time. So that just shows how much we really love it because it wasn't part of our current zeitgeist. It wasn't part of our world. It wasn't on the radio.
Yeah, well, your music taste at the time was definitely like wise beyond your years of going back and looking at the history and the lineage of, okay, these artists I love now, where did they come from? Because I think that's
Hmm.
such an important part of being a journalist is understanding that lineage and like the timeline of music. Did
Yes.
you find that that's been really valuable even when talking to present day artists now?
100%. Well, first and foremost, I love to learn. We're always constantly learning, and I am a sponge. I think it makes us better. I think it's good for our brains. I think it's good for our souls. So I was always fascinated with everything that came before me. To this day, I'm fascinated with times that occurred before us. I just think that's so cool. And history, I see history through the lens of music because there's nothing more important than the musical culture. And that's how you can really get a snapshot of a moment in time is by understanding the music and why it was coming out in that time. So, yes, I always love when I'm interviewing to know who the artists were that inspired their art. And especially with young artists today, like who inspired them. I'm always just so fascinated to find out who that is because I even give them like more credit, like we said, because they had to actively find it. And it's interesting, of course, how young people discover music now versus how we did when I did, which was through albums, because you had to buy the whole album and you had limited money. So whatever album you
Right.
bought, that's what you listened to. You know it inside and out, the sequence, the secret track, and young people don't listen in terms of albums, which I think is a little sad. It's not a lost art; it's still very much relevant, but it's sad to not fully understand an artist from their full body of work. But at the same time, they have access to so many songs and that's amazing. I just feel like that's so cool. Talk about being the ultimate student. You can listen to anything at any time, and I think that is just so liberating.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way where I have the pros and cons list of like having the physical. I still have a CD case in my car. Like I
Oh yeah,
I
I
refuse
love
to give
you.
it up.
I love you for
Because
that.
thank
Hmm.
you, thank you. But it's just there is also some value in the storytelling of a track list, which every artist does so intentionally and there's just a different way of experiencing music in that way. But we do also have so much privilege of access now that we didn't before. So it's like
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong, they're just different.
And also, I still work with artists. Like that's like
Yes.
sort of like the main thing I do, heritage acts and also brand new artists, and they still very much care about the body of work, and the sequencing is so important. I mean, I still do A&R. A&R is my background, and like the sequencing is so important. Even when I was the head of rock at Spotify, when I do a playlist, I cared about the sequence. Like I would like painstakingly comb through and do some sort of flow. Even though people listen to it on shuffle sometimes, I made sure that my playlist was like in perfect sequence.
How disrespectful that they would shuffle that.
I
How
know.
dare they?
How dare they? Yes.
No, but so there's so much I want to get into with you since you did just mention that you're still working with artists currently and you have an A&R background. But well, not start because we're already in it, but let's continue there. Because
Okay.
I thought it was so exciting and fun when I realized that you were working with Change Saint. Because I
Yes.
do PR for Chain Saint, and then you came on board. You're also supporting them, and I was like, dream team,
Dream
amazing.
team. You know what it is? I love all things rock and alternative, past,
Yeah.
present, and future. My background's in A&R. When I was at Spotify, I really cared so much about being first on artists. I just love being early on artists and giving them a platform and helping to guide them because I really care about them and I care about their journeys. So it only makes sense that I'm continuing to work with young artists. And especially like rock and alternative, which is not mainstream. It's so underground. It's still alive and well. It's just not popular. So it makes me want to help newer artists even that much more. So when I come across a band like Chain Saint, these young kids,
Yeah.
like 18 to 20, South Florida, who've got it, like they are the real deal. It's my passion to help guide them, whether it's from an A&R perspective, um, just the whole spectrum. Like I just love what they're doing, and it brings me so much joy because we're carrying the torch for all
Yeah.
things rock, metal, alternative. For me, it's all the same. It's all under the same umbrella. Like we're all on the same team. I'm never that person who's like, oh, that's not metal, or that's not rock, or that's not me. I love all of it genuinely. And that's why I love Sleep Token. Like Sleep Token's such a polarizing band, but I'm obsessed with Sleep Token. I love that it doesn't fit in one category. I think that's as rock and roll as it gets. Like that's punk rock to me.
Hmm.
And that's why bands like Sleep Token or bands like Chain Saint, bands like Return to Dust, are just very exciting to me.
Yeah, and it's even evident in the kind of artists you have on your podcast. It's a whole range. Some of them aren't even artists. But if they
Yeah.
represent, I remember you said like if they represent the rock and roll spirit, that's what it's about. And
Yes.
I loved the way you defined rock and roll spirit, and it's so like tangible when you say it like that, like what that means.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's so many artists that maybe do more like pop leaning music, but they're rockers, I mean, like
Yeah.
Lainey Wilson's a perfect example. Lainey Wilson is a country artist, but she's super rock and roll. She's the real deal. She's cool. She's like effortlessly cool, and she's a rock star, and I've had her on my show and I adore her. And I think she's really important. I think that she is really paving the path for the future of country. She's got some Southern rock and roll in there. I love when artists are able to kind of incorporate many of their influences. I love that. And I love when artists wear their influences on their sleeves. Youngblood is another, newer artist who I helped champion from day one. And he's a superstar and wears all of his influences on his sleeves. He has respect for the past while creating the future and creating a fresh new sound that is all his own.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're not. I mean, I knew you weren't, but not the gatekeepy type when it comes to genre. It's
Yeah,
funny because even in my circle of friends, I talk about Chapel Roan being one of the most punk
I
rock
love
artists
her.
right now.
Love her.
Her attitude and her way of being, I'm like, that's punk.
That's
That's
punk.
punk than punk bands.
She's so punk. I've chills
Yeah.
even talking about her. I hosted Bonnaroo last year on Hulu, and her performance at Bonnaroo, which had to be changed, the venue had to be kept being changed because it kept getting bigger and bigger. And I watched that show and I was like, she's literally going to be like the biggest star on the planet. I love her. She's so badass. She's irreverent. She just unapologetically herself. She's so punk rock. And I absolutely am grateful for her. Because, like,
Yeah.
I I'm not opposed to pop music. It's just popular music. I love a lot of pop music, but for me, it needs to be that spirit. It has to have teeth. It has to have that bite. And
That
Chappell Roan
grit.
has that. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
And even just you being able to clock that Chapel Roan was going to be so huge and seeing that in Change Saint Return to Dust, like these bands you're talking about, you clearly have such an eye for spotting star power. I mean, that's what A&R is essentially, right?
Hmm.
So, what are the key factors that you really look for in an artist when it's kind of early days and maybe they haven't
Yes,
reached their full potential yet, but you're like, I see the glimmers of the teeth and the bite.
100%. So when I was doing A&R Epic Records, I signed a 16-year-old girl named Juliet Sims, who went on to be, she's now Lilith Czar. But I literally saw her at 16 and I said, this girl is a superstar. And to answer your question, it's talent. It's like undeniable talent. The talent has to be there. Two, there's a certain star presence. There's a star element. You either have it or you don't. And three, the drive. You have to want it. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes for how long it takes. You know why? Because I have that work ethic. So you need to have it as an artist. So I just knew artists like Juliet Sims, artists like Youngblood, Greta Van Fleet was another band that I championed very early. They have to have it all because it's just too hard. There's a lot of talented people, there's a lot of talented people, but that's just one part of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, and just like one more thing, and I think this kind of goes along with the star power. It's a vision. It's the vision. Like you see it for yourself because you need to. The greatest artists in history are ones that didn't fit a mold. It was difficult for them. They had to overcome obstacles and create their own path. Even artists like Lady Gaga, who I've interviewed numerous times, will say like she didn't fit anywhere, and like even Youngblood, like, he's just in a bunch of different categories, and those are the types of artists that really make the biggest impact. You
Yeah.
have to have the vision though. Like I remember when I sat down with Youngblood the first time and the way he was talking. This was like in 2017. And everything he talked to me about then has come true plus more. He just had this vision and he was going to do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, I do even remember, I think it was the following year, he did Warp Tour. We were all on Warp Tour together and he
Hmm.
had like the pink striped socks at the time. And
Yes.
the way he was strutting around like he was somebody, everybody
Yeah.
believed it. You
Hmm.
know, even though none
Yeah.
of us knew who he was, we were like, yeah, we know what he's
Yeah.
doing. So
Yeah, for
for sure, there's like
sure.
that star power and like determination. And I think it's worth mentioning too, what a great point you made of like you have that kind of work ethic, so you expect that from artists too. Because I think artists need to hear that of like when it becomes professional and it becomes, you're really pushing for it. There's a team of so many people working for you. And it's like
Yeah.
we all have to keep up with each other to make it worthwhile, you know? Like
I
that drive
think
has to
that
be
it
everywhere.
has to be there. And you know what? No matter how big you are, that DIY work ethic, I just think it's innate. I
Hmm.
think that it doesn't matter like how big you get. When artists have teams, like it's still like that. It comes from within. Like The Warning is a great example of, these three sisters that have been doing this since they were like out of the womb. They have a massive team. They work so hard. It makes them, and actually incentivizes them more because now they have a whole team and they have to like answer to people and they're
Right.
all part of it together. And I just think that drive and that DIY ethos. It's that punk rock ethos is everything.
It all comes back to that rock and roll, the rock and
Yes.
roll. And it's actually interesting because, we're going where we go in the flow of the conversation. And it's interesting that you're talking about star power because I actually have the word star power written down to describe you. So
Oh,
let's get to that.
oh my
Because
God. Thank you.
of course, but I've seen so many of your interviews in so many different lanes where you've done interviews and hosting. And even though you aren't the center of attention because it is about your guests, you do command the conversation in a very powerful way. Like you have your own presence within the
Oh,
in the interview. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about what your keys are for exuding confidence and authority, whether it's vocal inflection, body language, wardrobe. What is it for you that gets you in that mode?
First of all, I can't thank you enough. That's the ultimate compliment. So thank you. Like you
You're
are like
welcome.
making my year right now. I'm not kidding. I just no, it's really I'm just
Oh.
very touched. I'm very touched. I think that I learned early on that all an interview is a conversation of trust. And if you don't have that trust, it's not going to go anywhere. And again, that holds true for any conversation or any relationship. It all comes down to listening and trust. And within those first couple of seconds, when you're doing an interview, you need to inspire trust. And I think a big part of that is respecting your guests by researching them. I mean, I can't tell you how much work I put into preparing for my interviews. I know everything. I could write like a term paper about, my guests. I think that shows respect when you show up and you've really prepared and you've thought about it. It makes them feel respected, and that's
Hmm.
how they trust you. Like a couple of instances throughout my life, one year I was hosting Bonnaroo and like Eminem was headlining and he wasn't going to do any press. And then like last second, they were like, Eminem will do one interview with you. And I was like, oh my God, and like I did not know him at all. I've never met him before. And everyone's like, he might not make eye contact with you, or he's like, maybe, whatever, all these things. And I was like, let me just ignore everything that's being told to me right now. And let me sit down with him as a human being and we'll see how it goes. And we sat down and he actually did kind of start like, a little bit like off, a little standoffish, but I like leaned in and like listened and we like made eye contact and I happened to know a lot about his current project and I just sort of like went in there and he like I'll never forget it. He looked at me and it was like this connection where he was like, oh, I see you. Okay, let's go. And it was like a click. And I was like, oh my God, this is like one of the greatest moments of my life. And then more recently, because that was a while ago, that was kind of earlier on in my career, but most recently I had Mötley Crüe on my show. And
Wow.
Mötley Crüe could be like intimidating. These are like living legends.
Yeah.
And they've told the same stories a million times. I'm sure they don't want to tell them again. And that's another thing as an interviewer. It's like you don't want the guests to be bored. And Mötley Crüe's been interviewed how many times? Anyway, I said, and I'm such a lover. So I was like, I want everyone here to share something they love about the other members of the band, which is so
Cute.
brazen because they're all adults who've been together for decades and there's been some tumultuous dynamics and like they definitely tried to get out of it and I was like, no, like you're answering it. And I literally turned the Motley Crue interview into a Dr. Feelgood session. And it was
I love that.
there was tears in the room. Like they were like literally it was like Nikki Sixx being like, what I love about Vince. I was like,
I can't
Allison.
even, I
I
have to
like
go watch that now because I can't
you
imagine
please
it.
please watch it. It's on my YouTube channel and it will bring you so much joy. And that's what I also just try to do with my conversations. I'm never going to be hitting that salacious gossip, clickbait stuff. That is literally the antithesis of me. And I think
Yeah.
that's why guests also trust me because I let other outlets do that. That's not what I want to do. I actually want you to feel so safe that you're going to, on your own, share things that you haven't shared before. That's more my MO is like, let's actually just have a safe space and see what magic comes out of it. Cause it's those moments that are memorable,
Yeah.
and that's what makes me feel good that someone trusted me enough to share that with me and only me.
I feel so like weirdly validated because I feel like I'm in a weird way looking in a mirror because I feel like I have a lot of the same intentions and ideas when I do interviews. It's like my job is to create rapport, create safety, let them talk about things that most interviewers don't let them talk about. All of that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it helps you stand out and it makes the artist feel special. It's wonderful. No wonder you're like so amazing at what you do. You just have like good
Oh.
intentions.
I really do. My mother was a therapist, and we just were raised on empathy and compassion and patience. And I live my life that way, so it just only makes sense that I also conduct my interviews that way. I mean, it's almost like I'd be better off if I would do that salacious things, but that's just not who I am. And what I do is very organic. And once people find it, they're like, okay, yeah, this is my community. This is the kind of stuff I want to hear and be part of.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think a common thread with literally any artist, any person is we all just want to feel seen. And you've
Yeah.
done an amazing job of making the artist feel seen, but also helping rock fans feel seen and like they have a voice because you kind of speak from the fan perspective too. So you've been able to do that all around for the viewers and the people sitting in your interview chairs.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm at the end of the day just the ultimate music fan, who just made this my life, like this is my career, this is my life, and it's just at the end of the day, I'm just a music fan. So I genuinely, no matter who my guest is, I get excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited that they're there, whether it's absolute legends, like interviewing Queen, Brian May and Roger Taylor of Queen, or like Nile Rodgers or whoever it is, or even young artists that I just have so much respect for. I'm genuinely excited to be there to talk with them about their art, but also to talk with them as the human behind the art. I what I really love to do, and yes, we'll discuss accolades and accomplishments and stuff like that. I really love getting to the human behind it all, the vulnerability, the obstacles they had to overcome, the insecurities they have, because they're just humans like us. And isn't there's no better way to connect with fans is to have them see themselves in their favorite artists, Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm is so great like that. She's an amazing person. What a great interview. She's very open. I just have so much respect for her and what she has built and continues to build.
Yeah, when I interviewed Lizzie, she almost made me cry. So
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
really, and for most artists too, interviews are really, aside from social media, one of the only times where they are humanized, where they're taken off a
Yeah.
pedestal and have the opportunity to tell a story in a conversational setting. So it's really important to give them that moment to do that, in that space to do that. So
Exactly.
yeah. And I mean, you've talked about some pretty high stakes moments, some pretty huge interviews that you've done. Even just looking back before your podcast, before everything, you were hosting Times Square on New Year's Eve. You did the final kiss interview. You've had just some like whoa moments. What has been the most nerve-wracking thing you've caught on camera?
Oh man, I have to say hosting the Final Kiss show was pretty unbelievable. It was like my Super Bowl moment to, be with the band and their final interview as the band and then coming off the stage like interviewing Gene Simmons like he teared up, just like it was one of and I was crying while he was crying and it just was like I felt like I was in a dream sequence. Like the just how honored I was to be in that position was just so mind blowing. And then to be able to connect and have that human connection with Gene Simmons as he came off the stage, and and like them walking with Paul Stanley arm in arm to his dressing room. Like
Gosh.
these moments never ever get lost on me. I am like very present and in the moment, but I am also just so like I am so grateful and I can't believe this is happening. I mean that kiss moment was unbelievable. Getting to be with you too, one of my absolute favorite bands with a day with them in the studio, like having them show me music first. I mean it's just mind-blowing. I was too young to see a lot of my favorite bands live like Nirvana or like Blind Melon, like all of these early 90s bands. I was too young to see them all. And just like being able to have these moments as a fan with just all these legends, it never gets lost on me. I can't believe it. I mean, I
Yeah.
got to spend time with Chris Cornell. Actually, I think interviewing Chris Cornell was one of those moments for me where I
Wow.
was completely out of body. Like out of body. Like kind of like not okay. Like
No,
I
I've
was
had
like,
it.
I was like, oh my God.
When you say
Yeah.
out of body, I know exactly what you mean, where you're just like, I'm floating.
Like I
We're
was
not here.
floating. Interviewing Chris Cornell, I was absolutely floating. And let's not
Yeah.
let's not also forget like all of these guys when they came up were gorgeous. Like I was like a young preteen, you know what I mean? And like so not only did I love Soundgarden's music, Chris Cornell was objectively magnificently gorgeous, So it's
Yeah.
like, like young girls love like Justin Bieber or they love Harry Styles. I loved Chris Cornell. I love, that's who mine was. So,
Yeah.
just being able to spend time with him was just such a gift on many levels.
Yeah, that would be me with Green Day. Billy Joe was the
Oh
first crush. So I'm
yeah.
like, Billy Joe, if you ever want to do an interview, I will be respectful, but it would be really
I
great.
I love that. And I feel the same way. Dookie was actually my first tour that I ever went. I mean, my first like show that I ever went to on my own as a kid. Like I went with my
Amazing.
friends. It was like such a big deal. And Dookie was the album, was one of those imprinting albums for me. And I recently went to their Hollywood star ceremony, which Matt Pinfield hosted. And it was one of those days where I'm like, what's happening right now? Like I
Oh,
am here with Matt Pinfield, who was my mentor, like my idol growing up, and now he's like my best friend. And then I'm here hanging out with Green Day to get their star, and this was my first show ever. Like that's what I'm saying. It just I'm always so humbled and just so grateful that these moments have somehow happened in my life. So,
it's
but
super full
you have to
circle.
make, but you have to make it happen though. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's very full circle. And it's wonderful that after this much time in the industry, you haven't gotten jaded or lost that gratitude because I feel like as soon as that disappears, it's kind of over.
It is
So,
over. And even as a human being, like we need to always check in with ourselves. And because things are overwhelming, we live in extremely stressful times, we live in dark times. And I think that at least once a day, you need to like check in with yourself, right? And just name all the things you're grateful for and how far you've come and be proud of where you are now, even though it might not be where you want to be. You might want to be further along or something else, but it's always important to like see how much you have accomplished in this moment.
yeah, you got to take stock. I heard something really great not long ago that said, oh, you think you haven't made progress? Would you want to be who you were a year ago? If the answer is no, even if it's small, you've made progress.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, because my answer is
Mhm.
no. I'm glad where I'm at, grateful every day.
Yeah.
And even thinking about the way you said you kind of have to make it happen and like your origin story working with Matt Pinfield in your early days, I want to rewind a little bit because I feel like we got so far ahead getting excited to talk about all the juicy good stuff right now. But
Yeah.
I think you're also a great example because I mean, I don't know about you, I get questions every day from aspiring interviewers or photographers who want to know how to do what we do. And this industry can seem so impenetrable because you need an all access pass. How do you get an all access pass? To kind of put
Yeah.
it in a bit of a metaphor. And I know you started more so behind the scenes in A&R
Mhm.
with some record
Mhm.
labels and eventually transitioned to being an on-camera host. Could you walk me through like a cliff notes of the journey? It may be
Totally.
helpful for some people.
Yes, and I also want to point out so my YouTube channel, which I am really trying to build like this wonderful community that we are both part of, and it's mostly my interviews, but starting next week, I'm going to start doing personal journey videos because a lot of people have asked me, and of all ages, and
Hmm.
I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just share my journey and lessons learned, and it's something that we can all, I love hearing other people's journeys. I just think it's like it's helpful. So I'm going to start doing that on my YouTube channel. I think you're going to like that.
What a
But I
great
think,
resource.
but I think that I grew up. What I remember is my mother loves music. So like I was raised with music in the house, just like as fans, and I always loved music, and it was like oldies, it was like oldies and Motown and classics, awesome stuff. And then I was a kid in the 80s and I told her sisters, so like 80s pop was and the radio. So like Madonna and Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson and Cyndi Lauper and all that great stuff. Um, but that was also around the time when I discovered Nirvana, and that's when I switched and it was like, oh my God, this is my life. This is my calling. And like hearing Nirvana and the way it made me feel, I was like, oh, okay, I don't just like music. Like it's actually part of me and it's going to be my compass. So my mother showed me American Bandstand reruns, and Dick Clark was the host. And I was like, that is what I want to do. Here is a guy, he's interviewing the guests, the artists, he's introducing new music to the fans. He's kind of like that connector, like that spark. he's with the fans, but he's also with the artists. And like, that's what I want to do. So that's when I first knew like that's what I wanted to do. And then I'm from the MTV generation. I saw Matt Pinfield and I was like, oh my God, I need to be a VJ on MTV. Like this is what I want to be. But I like missed the boat on it because I was too young. And like by the time I was like old enough to be a VJ, like they'd stopped doing music at that point. It was sort of like a bad timing situation.
And I just want to say
But
too, it's funny because it was the same for me. I wanted to be, well, I watched much music, but also MTV,
yes,
and that's all I wanted was to be a VJ, which I was even later on the train,
yes,
so that sucked. But anyways,
yes.
just interesting
No,
parallels.
totally. Because what I finally worked for me was Fuse, which was Much Music. So that was my television debut. But side note, I actually went to college to be a doctor. I actually graduated pre-med. I like am a total
Oh,
science nerd. I like love science. But music was always my calling. So like every summer when I'd come back to New York from college, I would like do anything to like touch music and to be in the music business. I would commute on a bus into the city to stockpile CDs. And like just to like be close to music. Like I was willing to do whatever it took just to like be in the mix. Then my senior year at college, I became the Sony college rep at Penn State. And I won rep of the year because I don't do anything like half-ass. I went
love it.
hardcore in that job. And as a reward, I got a job offer at both Columbia and Epic Records. And I was like, okay, I have to decide if I'm going to med school or not because I was like getting ready to go. And I was like, okay, med school is going to have to wait. I have to seize this opportunity. Plus, I knew that Matt Pinfield worked at Columbia Records. I said,
You
I will take,
legend.
I was like, I will take that Columbia Records job, which had nothing to do with Matt. I was an assistant in the jazz department. And I said, I'll take it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Worked my butt off. Saw Matt Pinfield and I was like, oh, hi, Matt. You know, I'm a massive fan. Like, oh, I work over here, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. We were on different floors for months. I literally kept like proposing to Matt and to HR to also allow me to assist Matt, like in addition to my two other assistant positions in the jazz department. Finally, they gave it to me. So I became this assistant for all of these things, but Matt and I clicked so much and I became Matt's right hand that then I only assisted Matt. And that was really how my beginning in the music business, like, that's how it started. It was like, I was Matt Pinfield's right hand at Columbia Records. Let's go. It was so cool. It
I
was
love
like,
this. It's such an example of squeaky wheel gets the oil, is what I always say. Like, you just got to be loud and persistent and don't give up. You did not give up.
I didn't. And look, you have to do it tactfully and professionally
Yes.
and not in a scary way. But it's just, I think the biggest takeaway from that is like obviously drive, and commitment and work ethic, but it's really your personal connections. I cannot state enough how connection is the most important thing in any career. It's the way you make people feel. And you can be an assistant doing to a higher up or the other way around. It's just that people will remember how you made them feel. And I think that I made Matt feel and even HR feel like I was the right person for this position and I was a solution,
Yes.
you
And
know?
that's
And I
also a
think
key.
that's
You
what it is.
found not necessarily a problem, but you found a need and you fulfilled it, right? So you
Yes.
you did all the things right. That's such a great example to show people. I love it. And what's I think there's something really to be said about the importance of connection, which I think, especially for sort of a younger generation where social media is a thing, it's both a blessing and a curse because I
Yeah.
think we're finding it harder to socialize, but also easier to connect online. What advice would
Hmm.
you give young people for like building a network and like finding your people in the industry? Because clearly you did a great job, but it was a different time.
Yeah, it was a different time, but I think social media, I mean, I'm so jealous that that exists now from a networking perspective, you know? But it's really important to make sure you have in real life connections. If you love the music business and you want to go out and about, go to shows, like you just need to have human connection. Use other platforms like LinkedIn just to know who does what. Like who
Yeah.
are these people? Just research people, research people and see how you can connect with them. And honestly, like you can DM a lot of people. I mean, they might not see it or they might not respond to it, but like, I just cannot believe that you can like basically get to anyone. Like, it's just so wild. I mean, I still do it. I do it with artists.
Hmm.
I think it's amazing, but I really can't say enough how important the in real life connections are. So it's just living the life in real life too. I think it's going out to shows, it's going out to industry events. Um, it's just, I think you need to just kind of find out what's happening and put yourself there.
Yeah. I mean, hey, such a great example. Sliding in the DMs sometimes works. I slid in your email inbox and look at us now. So
Oh
you know
yeah,
what?
exactly.
You just got to
Exactly.
go for it.
You have to. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And times have changed too, so beyond not just networking and how we're connecting with each other, but even in terms of media. I mean, you started on national television and I mean, of course, national television is still extremely important, but
Yeah.
now it's so much more online. And
Hmm.
you're an awesome example of being adaptive in that way. Now having the Allison Hagendorf show, your YouTube channel, which you're really putting a lot of energy into growing into such an amazing platform too. What is your mindset towards remaining adaptive and kind of ahead of the curve of media trends to have a longevity in your career?
It's essential. I mean, it's absolutely essential. And I always look at it because a lot of, artists are like, I don't want to do social media. And I get it. We all just want to do our craft. We all just
Yeah.
want to focus on our passion, on our craft, on our skill. And I absolutely get it. But I think it's a mindset and a perspective. You're not trying to reach everyone. In fact, what you're doing is creating a direct line to your people. And if you look at it that way, that's exciting. I'm just like, this is a beautiful way to connect with my people. Nothing brings me more joy than people saying, wow, I had no idea who you were. And this is the best interview I've ever seen from this artist. Or I really love that you're doing music news right now. Like it's just people find you and then you're connected and it's actually building this beautiful community. So, yes, I used to eye roll and be like, I love television and I'm used to this. And it's like, it's just silly. It's actually just, it's silly. If you just switch your mindset to think, how can I use this? Which, by the way, it's for free also. How can I use this free platforms to find my people? And then only put out what you want to put out. Like get out of your head and just don't look at what other people are doing. I think it needs to be something sustainable, like that you want to put out that will actually bring you joy. And by the way, don't allow the metrics to like steal that joy. Sometimes I will spend so much time on something and then you put it out and you're like, great, why are there like 4 views on it? But sometimes the 4 views, I hope it's more than 4 views, but like sometimes those very few views are now people that you're genuinely now connected with. I'd
Yeah.
rather have less views of meaningful connections than many views that they'll never connect with you ever again. I care more about even the connections from those numbers as opposed to just the numbers.
Yes, huge. Well, so I know you're a fitness person, so you'll understand what I mean when I say this. I did a 10-mile race last month.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
beforehand, I was so tired. It was like 4 in the morning. I was like, I don't want to be here. And someone said something that clicked, and it makes so much sense for this conversation too. They were like, remember, you don't have to do this. You get to do this.
Yes,
And
I
that
love
was the
that.
switch I needed to run that race. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
same for social media. It's like we get to do this. By posting on social media and marketing ourselves, it helps us to continue our craft, right? And like
Yeah,
musicians, it's the same thing too. So we make the reels because
we
we get
do.
to.
I love that. First of all, I love that you are a runner. I think that's fantastic.
Well, I used to be a CrossFit girly, but that's a conversation for another time, I think.
Oh, it's another thing we have
Yeah.
in
Oh,
common.
I know.
Amazing.
I think
Amazing.
when I first followed you, I was like the fitness content. It was,
Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing. Oh my God. All right. You and I, we have so much in common. I love this.
kindred
Um,
spirits, I think.
totally. Yeah, I think that with all the social media stuff, and the bottom line is there's so much darkness, there's so much comparison, there's so much toxicity, and I really loathe that. Like I do think that's ruining our society. Um, But I think you need to really do a good job of like filtering out what you can, silencing out what you can, and really focusing on the good that it does and the connections you make from it. That's sort of how I stay sane with it. And I have connected with so many fellow music fans that I never would have connected with. And now we have like a relationship. Like we feel like we're connected. And I think that's beautiful. And that's the light we need amongst all the darkness.
100%. I mindset is everything, and you seem like you've really like locked it down and been able to be so optimistic about all the great things that
Mhm.
social media can bring us because there's no point in focusing on the negative. Just
Right.
stay
Well,
in your
it's a
lane.
survival tactic,
It
right?
really
It's like
is.
what are you going to do about it?
Well, it's either
Right?
that or I delete the apps. So
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
exactly. And I do want to touch on your YouTube channel as well. Like I know you said there's going to be personal stories you're going to be posting. Let's talk a little more about that platform in particular. You're doing some really cool stuff with music history and music
Hmm.
video deep dives. What
Yeah.
can we expect on the YouTube channel and what are you hoping music fans take away from your content?
Yeah, it's YouTube is such an interesting place, right? Because you're like putting like intense, heartfelt interviews in the same platform with like funny cat videos. Like it's just such like a weird thing, you know?
We love range.
I mean, it's just such a wild thing. And then let's just even just talk about music content. There's so many people doing music content. But I find that a lot of those people are and that's why they're successful. Is they do one thing, people know what they're getting from it, and I think that's how you succeed on YouTube. And I feel like I probably should do that, but that's just not who I am. So I'm just going to try different things. It's like deep dive on music. There's music news, there's interviews. I'm going to be talking about my journey. I'm probably going to incorporate some fitness stuff because really it has to all do about how can we celebrate life? How can we live our best life? And sometimes that's through music, sometimes that's through fitness, sometimes that's through great conversations. So for my YouTube channel is sort of a place for like-minded people who just want to celebrate life and feel connected and to be part of a community who really loves music and loves life and just is just trying to like listen to great tunes and go to great shows and connect with other people who feel the same way.
Yeah, it's interesting how you say like you feel like you need to do the same thing on YouTube to be successful because I feel like all of that's the Allison Hagendorf brand. Everything
Mhm.
that's on your channel, like you do have a brand of like the vibe and the things that I would expect from you. And like to see you doing that in a different format now on YouTube is really exciting. So it all makes
Oh,
sense.
thank you. I like with Nick Hexum from 311, instead of doing like a traditional interview with him, we worked out together in my friend's gym. And like that was really fun. And that was like a different angle of us like talking about the role that fitness plays in our lives and music plays in our lives. And they often go hand in hand. I think what I like to do is to show artists as humans. So whether that means we're hanging out or we're in the gym or we're doing anything besides just them being artists. And I always want to be that person who gets the vulnerability because that's where the magic is.
Totally. It's like really funny you say that too because there is again, I think sometimes when you really love an artist, you put them on a pedestal, you forget they're a human. I'll never forget. Actually, I did an interview with Lilith Czar, Juliet in
Yes.
Tampa, and she got dropped off at the podcast studio. Andy was driving, Andy Black from Black Veil
Yes, of
Brides.
course, Black Belt Rides. Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh yeah, he does drive a car. That's so strange."
He's her
Yeah.
husband dropping her off. Yeah,
Literally, but to
exactly.
see him in that role, I'm like, yeah, that's just a person. But sometimes you need that reminder of those things.
Well,
That
you
was
remember
just
when
a
you
funny
were a
one.
kid and you'd see your teacher at the grocery store and you're
It's
like,
like
what's
that.
happening? How could my teacher be out of the classroom? You're like, how could Andy Black not be in makeup on a stage commanding an arena? You know what
It
I
was
mean? It's
literally that.
like,
I'm like, oh, he's literally just dropping his wife off at the podcast studio. Yeah. But of course, I know Andy. So I'm like, hey, bud,
yeah,
what's up? What are we all doing
yeah,
here?
exactly.
Such a funny comparison of the teacher in the grocery store. That
Yes.
is the sensation. Maybe we need to see more videos like that. We just need to see you do more more content
Yes.
where we expose artists for the normal people they are.
Yes. You know what I really should do? And I always want to hear what people want to see. Like from you, Tori, also. Like, what do you want to see? I really just I want to give the people what they want.
Interviews
I'm
while
down
band
for it.
members drive cars.
I love that. I love that.
Take it. It's
Yes.
yours.
Well, actually, I have something like that in the works, which I will come back to with once that's done. But it's literally we're doing that. So very excited.
Amazing. Foreshadowing.
Yes.
Well, I
Yes.
love to end episodes with a series of jaw-dropping questions, and it's your time. Are you ready?
Amazing. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. Well, the first one being, what's the most jaw-dropping experience you've ever had at a show?
Oh my God, that's like impossible.
I recognize that's a really tough one for you.
Jaw dropping. Probably, maybe witnessing like the Wall of Death at a Lamb of God show. It's just
Mm.
like I also work I A&R Lamb of God Sacrament album, so I was spending a lot of time with Lamb of God, and to see that so often, it blew my mind every time. It's not like, oh, here comes the Wall of Death. Like every time, I'm just like so wowed by it. But that, yeah, I mean, just those types of moments where you really see the fans just living for the moment, physically giving themselves like to the moment is just I'm in awe every time.
Do you ever go in a wall of death, or did you ever?
Oh my, you know it. I mean,
Okay,
come
just
on.
making I had to
Oh,
ask.
oh yeah. Oh please. I am lucky that I never like broke anything. I mean, I'm 5'2", I'm a girl, and I just lived in the pit. I lived in the pit. Even as an adult, like there was like this one time where I love Royal Blood like so much. I love Royal Blood. I was actually the one of the few people that was at their first show in America when they played the Mercury Lounge in New York. It was like me and Jimmy Page was there. Like it was like 8 people at the Mercury Lounge, and I was like, I actually cried at Royal Blood's first. I go, this band is going to be massive, and I just love this band. Anyway, I digress. So then I got to work with them at Spotify. They were on my show. So I went to go see them at maybe it was the Wiltern, I'm not sure. I'm working at Spotify. I have an all access pass. We're watching from the sound booth, and it's like awesome. And I'm like, you know what? I just can't watch the show like this. And Brian, my husband, who I love because he just lets me be crazy, I gave him my bag and I was like, don't worry, I'm going to be fine. And I literally jump into the pit. It was not rowdy enough. I like recruited these 2 huge guys and I was like, let's go. Can I like bump into you? Cause I was afraid that I'm starting with men who are like a foot taller than me. And they kind of looked at me like, what? And I was like, I like body slammed into him. And literally I started the pit at the Royal Blood show. This is like as an adult. This is like a couple years ago. And then
You're amazing.
Ben Thatcher, the drummer of Royal Blood, he's like watching this and he's looking at me while he's drumming. He's like, "You're a psycho," and I love it. You know what I mean? It was like cred with the band.
You live and breathe it. I love it.
I do, I do, I do.
So good. And the next one here is the most jaw-dropping misstep early in your career and the lesson that you learned from it.
Um, I don't know if it's a misstep, but I waited too long when I was at Columbia Records as Matt's assistant. Like I kept thinking that because I was good at my job that I was going to get promoted. And I realized I was more valuable with Matt than I was without Matt. So the company was never going to promote me because I literally thought like hard work pays off. And like, obviously, they're going to promote me because I've done everything right. And I've been here for 4 years and it was like time. And in Matt's defense, he did go to bat for me and suggested that I be promoted because it was ready. Um, and I just waited too long. And then finally, I decided I was going to leave. And I went into the higher up's office and I was like, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to leave. And he looked at me and he said, if you leave here, you're taking yourself off the map. I,
Whoa.
and
Eat your words,
I
man.
literally looked at him. I like literally smiled and I go, oh, I'm just getting started. So I think the misstep was just that I waited too long. So the lesson is put in your dues. Put in your dues. You shouldn't expect anything out the gate. You have to put in the work. However, you should also know your value and don't expect that anyone is necessarily going to see it. So it's just being your own advocate, knowing your worth, knowing your value, and being your own advocate.
Yes. And two, even the way that you were told you're going to be put off the map for leaving, like thank God you didn't believe him.
Right.
because if you had really absorbed those words,
Yeah,
that would have been the end. So that's
you're
another
absolutely
lesson
right.
even in there.
It's
Huge.
true. Yeah, you have to create your own vision and you have to see it and believe it even when others do not.
Yeah. Amazing. And now the most jaw-dropping female artist that you would love to work with. If you could work with anyone, whether it's interviewing them or supporting their career in some way.
Stevie Nicks.
Oh, yeah. That'd probably
Stevie
be an
Nicks.
interview. I don't know that she needs our support.
She doesn't need my support. I like to sit to interview Stevie Nicks would be like I don't even I would have to like mentally prepare.
Is there
Yeah.
anything you know off the top of your head you would want to ask, or would it be like, oh, we got to really simmer on this?
Oh man. I personally want to know a lot about her like male relationships.
Yeah. Don't
Just
we
because I
all?
no, it's just because she's such a badass and she's such a fierce, and I know that, she just had relationships with all these iconic men, and I'm just and not from a salacious, gossipy way. I'm
Right.
just she's such a boss that I just like I'm just enamored with her, and like I kind of just want to hear about them like privately. But I just think she's amazing that even to this day she's as relevant as ever. I think it's like the secret to her longevity I'd want to know. Like on a more serious tip, I'd want to know the secret to her longevity, her creativity, um, her beauty, not just physically, she's just a beautiful being. Her soul, she just emanates. She's just one of a kind. She's like not human. She's like mystical.
I
I love her.
so agree. Man, there needs to be a sit down, you and Stevie Nicks, because I feel
Right?
like you want to ask the questions that we all want the answers to. Like you have the same curiosities again as a fan because we are
Ugh,
fans.
I love her. Who would be
Yeah.
yours?
Oh man, that's a crazy question. I've always well, this wouldn't be a female artist. Alice in Chains is my all-time favorite band. So to sit down with Jerry Cantrell would be really, really amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jerry is amazing. And God. All
Or
those
Miley Cyrus would actually be another big
Oh,
one for me.
I love her and I interviewed her and she is awesome. Oh, talk about the rock
Star.
and roll spirit. Oh my God.
Exactly.
She is like, and like, just to say, like, I was never really a fan of her music when she was younger, like all like that pop stuff.
Mm.
That wasn't for me at all. And then as she like became an adult, and I started to like her music, and then she put out really a rock record, and that's
Was
when
it
we
Plastic
interviewed
Hearts?
her.
Was that the
Yes,
big rock
yes,
record? Yeah.
yes. And I was like, okay, okay. Oh, I also saw her do the Chris Cornell tribute when Chris passed, and she did Temple of the Dog. Did she say hello to heaven? And I was like, oh my God. Because Taylor Momsen did it. I knew she was gonna crush it, but we knew Taylor's
Yeah.
a rocker.
Yeah.
But to see Miley do that, and I was like, oh, okay, this is like a different side of you. And then when I got to speak with her at length and to hear again back to her influences, how Dolly Parton is her godmother,
Hmm.
I mean, like her respect for Joan Jett, her respect for, the Riot Girl movement and all of that, how knowledgeable she is.
Hmm.
And
She's
I was
one of
like,
us.
oh, I was like, oh, okay, okay. You're one of us. I see you, respect, and I've loved her ever since. And I think she's fantastic.
That's amazing. It makes me happy to hear that as well because there's that joke of never meet your heroes, but I've always believed that she's someone where no, I want to meet that hero.
You
Because
do. She's
I
awesome.
grew up in the Hannah Montana era. For me,
Right.
that was like right, I was at
Yes.
the peak moment for it. So always been someone I've admired. So
Oh, that's
that's cool.
awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, she's the real deal. She's
Hell
legit.
yeah. Well, we got the last one here. Yeah, no, you got this. The most jaw-dropping misconception about you that you wish people understood.
That I only like rock music.
Oh, we debunked that big time today.
Yeah. I feel like people like, oh, she's like the rock girl or she like only knows rock and I like nothing. It's just so insane to me. You can have an expertise and a forte. Yes. Rock, alternative, metal is my forte, my expertise, but I love all music. I have worked in all music and all kinds of music is really my life. So, I would say that something outside of music, maybe that like I only do one thing, like maybe that I'm a music person and like that's the only way they see me when I see myself where music is just a part of me and it's just one part of me. Where I love fitness and I love positivity and being your best self. And I'm a mother and family and friends. And I love movies and I love comedy and I love adventure and I love nature. And I love them as much as I love music, you know?
Yes.
So it's just, music it is a part of me, but I feel like I'm so much more than that.
That's such a beautiful sentiment and such a good place to lead this on too, because I feel like to be a good journalist in any capacity is to be a good human, like to be
Hmm.
well-rounded in your life. You can bring all of that expertise and all of that knowledge, whether it's mindfulness or fitness or anything, it all helps you in conversation. So you
Absolutely.
are obviously more than just music because it shows in your work and it shows in who
Oh,
you are.
I also just want to tell you what a joy it is to sit with you. I think you are amazing. I
Thank
feel
you.
very connected with you in this conversation.
Thank
And I
you.
feel we have like so many parallels. And I'm like looking in a mirror and so many things. And it's
Thank
like,
you.
see, this is a benefit of social media because it's how we connected and we
Hmm.
wouldn't have otherwise. So, our connecting is an example of the beautiful aspects of social media. And I want us to continue because I feel like we're both like like carrying the light. You know, it's about
Yes.
positivity and connection and celebration. So respect to you.
Thank you. And likewise, really truly, because you're somebody that I am honored to see the parallels and I can see them too because you're somebody that I mean, you've done so much in your career that I still am dreaming of and hope to achieve and I want to, do so much more for myself and you're somebody that I really look up to and admire. So, thank you so much for your time
Oh,
and kind words because it's wonderful to feel like you have allies in this industry who really understand in the same way. So, I'm really grateful we connected as well.
totally. And I have to also say that's something I'm also very passionate about is supporting others, you know, who we're all on the same mission. We all just
Yeah.
want we're lucky that we get to experience this life at the same time and we want the same things and it's celebration, it's love, it's connection, it's music. um
It's rock
and
and roll
I
spirit, baby.
it's rock and roll, rock and roll, yes,
It's rock and
yes.
roll. But thank you so much, Allison. This has been such an honor. And everybody who's listening to the Allison Hagendorf Show, you know where to go. Her YouTube channel is absolutely kicking off right now, so make sure you check that out. Is there anything else you want to plug, make sure people know about before we go?
Honestly, I really would love to connect with everyone here, and I really do. I like read every comment. I try to respond as much as I can. So definitely hit me up at Allison Hagendorf on all socials. My YouTube channel is Allison Hagendorf. Like, I genuinely would love to hear from you. So please reach out.
Amazing. And two, you can keep tuning in as She's with the Band here on NotFest.com. Every other week, there are new episodes. So keep hanging out with me as well, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.